It's National Women's History Month, and of course, Central Oregon is filled with its own icons in history. So we're at the Deschutes Historical Museum with Executive Director Kelly Cannon-Miller to tell us about a few of those women. Who's the first one you want to share?
Well, Klondike Kate. If you're going to say icon in history, hers is the first name to pop up. Notorious theater performer Kate Rockwell moved here in 1912, but she was retiring from the theater, so here she was known as Aunt Kate, where she volunteered for the fire department and for St. Charles, including nursing during the 1918 flu epidemic.
So she was truly a part of the intricate detail of taking care of the firefighters,
Yes.
nursing, and became Aunt Kate, something that we wouldn't expect.
Yes, the story through time has been when the fire department bell would ring, she would put on a pot of coffee because she knew they'd need it.
The illustrious Aunt Kate. Who
That's
knew, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Who's the next woman you want to tell us about?
Well, the next is Dorothy Binney Putnam, who married George Palmer Putnam, the editor and owner of the Bend Bulletin. So she gets married and brought out to this little tiny town of Bend on the western frontier. And the big thing she's known for is bringing women's suffrage to the city. She brought the leading state speaker down to talk, spent a whole weekend speaking to different groups, and helped get women's suffrage for women in the state of Oregon past that 1912. And she's famous for being in Connecticut when she learned that the women of Bend would be the first to vote in the state on December 3rd that year. And she drove cross-country as fast as she could to be here and cast her vote that year.
And this is a significant year to make note of that because it's the centennial of the first women's suffrage march in Washington, D.C. in 1913. And one other piece of info about her is she was the Crayola heiress, is that right?
That's right. She was heir to the Crayola crayon fortune. So
right here in Central Oregon. And who's the next woman?
Well, we're in Reed School, and who was Reed School named for? It was Ruth Reed. So she was really important to starting the schools of Bend.
Let's find out about her.
Okay.
Well, not only are we here in Reed School named after Ruth Reed, but we're in an exhibit of a classroom that she would have experienced. But tell us the background on her real quick, Kelly.
Well, Ruth Reed came here from Canada in 1904, knowing that the newly forming city of Bend was looking to hire its first official school teacher. And when she got here, she saw more than just the teaching position she was hired for. Kids who wanted to do high school had to go to the Valley beyond the first primary grades. Oh. And so she really quickly establishes a high school curriculum and starts teaching high school in the evenings in whatever space she could find, and graduates the first high school class of Bend in 1908. And she taught from 1904 to 1910 when she got married. And of course, in those days, when you got married, you retired from your position. And then in 1914, when the citizens let the bond to build this building, this magnificent 3-story school building, there was no question, they named it for Ruth Reed. But it's really significant to note she was Mrs. Harley Overturf in 1914, and they chose to name it after her maiden name, which speaks to her importance in founding the Bend school system.
Another iconic woman.
That's right.
Who are we going to learn about next?
Next, we're going to learn about the important women in medicine in Deschutes County. So doctors tend to get all of the glory, and everybody remembers their names through history, but Bend and all of Deschutes County has a long history of really important nurses and nuns who give us the medical community that we know today, starting with Fern Hall, who was a nurse who came here in 1909, started the first hospital just out of a residence on Oregon Street with Dr. Coe, the famous Dr. Coe. But where would he be without Fern Hall and her nursing abilities? And similarly in Redmond, we have Sophia Ann Hofstetter. Same thing, operated a hospital out of a residence for 12 years before they get their own hospital.
Just making it happen.
Just making it happen. But really central is the nuns of St. Joseph, the Sisters of St. Joseph. Father Luke Sheehan is on a trip and meets Mother Gertrude Moffat and begs her over a series of years to come and start a hospital in Bend. And in 1918, she does that. She sends a group of nuns from Indiana out to start St. Charles Hospital here in Bend. They open in 1918 on Hospital Hill, where the Phoenix Inn is now. And we've been cooking ever since with the sisters, including, even more importantly, is Sister Catherine Hellman, who becomes CEO in 1969. She is the mover and shaker and motivator behind the move east of town and bringing in cancer treatment and life flight You know, all of the things that we know today about our medical establishment come from the Sisters of St. Joseph and Sister Catherine.
So clearly some women in history who made a difference.
That's right.
Our final person, who are we going to find out about?
Let's do a businesswoman. Let's do Maren Gribskov. In 1919, Maren Gribskov and the Betchen sisters come over fresh from Oregon Agricultural College with their degrees, and they start a little cafeteria called the OIC Cafeteria. But Maren was looking at this piece of property along the Deschutes River and had visions of an English tavern on the river. And can you imagine, in the middle of the Great Depression, she and Eleanor Betchen pool their resources and get a loan and build from scratch a brand new restaurant right on the banks of the Deschutes River, and that's who gives us today's Pine Tavern.
The iconic Pine Tavern still standing there today with the tree in the middle. Women who made history in Central Oregon, there were several. Come down and visit the Deschutes Historical Museum to find out more information. Visit Kelly, go online. But Kelly, this in your office, you wanted to share a little bit with our viewer today?
Remember, well-behaved women rarely make history.
I think you're on your way.
We are.